Darkness descends on Israel, a king in despair. The wind howled like a banshee, rain lashed against the stone walls of Saul's palace, mirroring the turmoil in the king's heart. Gone was the youthful confidence, the divine favor that had once marked him as the Lord's chosen. In its place festered a gnawing fear, a chilling premonition of doom. The Philistine army, a vast and terrible force, had amassed on the horizon, casting a long shadow over the very soul of Israel. Saul, once a towering figure of strength, now trembled. His grip on the throne had loosened, weakened by years of disobedience and rebellion against God. The silence of God added insult to injury to Saul's desperate plea. The weight of his sin pressed down on Saul, a suffocating blanket of guilt and despair. He had tasted the sweetness of victory, the intoxicating power of a kingdom, but those triumphs now felt hollow, distant echoes of a life lived in closer communion with the divine. He had ignored the warnings, silenced the whispers of his conscience, and now he faced the abyss alone and afraid. The Philistine army, a relentless tide of bronze and iron, drew closer with each passing hour. Their chariots thundered across the plains, their battle cries carried on the wind like the snarls of ravenous beasts. Saul, the once mighty warrior, felt his resolve crumble. He had known fear before, but this was different. This was the icy grip of despair, the chilling realization that he had brought this upon himself. A forbidden path, seeking answers in the shadows. Desperation is a powerful motivator. It can drive men to acts of extraordinary courage or plunge them into the darkest depths of despair. For Saul, it became a siren song, luring him towards a path he himself had declared forbidden. He, who had banished sorcery and necromancy from Israel, now found himself contemplating a desperate pact with the very forces he had condemned. Under the cover of darkness, cloaked in shame and fear, Saul sought out a woman, a witch, a necromancer, living in the fringes of society. Her name was whispered in hushed tones, a figure of both fear and reverence, the Witch of Endor. She represented everything Saul had rejected, everything he knew to be an abomination in the eyes of the Lord. Yet, in his desperation, her forbidden knowledge held a perverse allure. The air hung heavy and oppressive as Saul approached the witch's dwelling. The stench of strange incense and herbs filled his nostrils, a potent reminder of the dark arts practiced within. He felt a chill run down his spine, a primal fear stirring within him. But there was no turning back. He had come too far, surrendered too much to the grip of his terror. The witch, a wizened crone with eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets, greeted him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She recognized the king despite his disguise, his regal bearing impossible to completely conceal. Her voice, raspy with age and disuse, echoed in the dimly lit room. "What do you want with me?" she asked, her gaze unwavering. "Divine for me by a spirit," Saul commanded, his voice strained. "Bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee." The witch hesitated, sensing the danger, the weight of the request. The witch began her ritual, her voice chanting in an ancient tongue that sent shivers down Saul's spine. The room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. Saul, his heart pounding in his chest, watched with a mixture of fascination and dread. He had crossed a line, ventured into a realm where the veil between the living and the dead grew thin, and then, from the depths of the earth, a figure began to rise. The witch gasped, her eyes wide with fear and awe. Saul stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat. It was Samuel, the prophet, his form shimmering and translucent, his eyes burning with an otherworldly light. To the witch's surprise, this was not the usual occurrence. This was not the familiar spirit that she had expected to commune with. This was the hand of God at work, bringing up the man Samuel, still cloaked in his mantle. He was rather displeased with Saul's visitation, chastising him for disturbing his death rest. The prophet Samuel's words hung in the air, heavy with doom and finality. "The Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy," he intoned, his voice echoing with the weight of divine judgment. The Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me." Something we haven't seen before had just happened. A dead man prophesied to a living man. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? I think not. Saul, already broken by fear and despair, crumpled under the weight of the prophecy. His last hope, this desperate attempt to pierce the veil of silence, had only confirmed his worst nightmares. He had sought a miracle, a reprieve from the consequences of his actions, but found only the cold, hard truth of his own making. The witch, her face pale, watched as the life drained from the once mighty king. She had witnessed many things in her lifetime, but nothing like this. The power she had invoked, the forces she had manipulated, had failed her this time around, but brought utter despair to the king. She had seen firsthand the mighty hand of God, even in the forbidden things and the terrible consequences of defying the will of God. Saul stumbled from the witch's dwelling a broken man. The wages of sin is death. Disobedience brings with it a bitter fruit. The next day, on the blood-soaked fields of Gilboa, Saul's desperate gamble played out its tragic conclusion. The Philistine army, like a force of nature, swept over the Israelite ranks. Saul, his spirit broken, his army shattered, fought with the desperation of a man who had nothing left to lose. But it was a losing battle, a futile last stand against the inevitable. Wounded and surrounded, facing capture and humiliation, Saul chose a final act of defiance. He fell upon his own sword, seeking to end his life on the same blade that had tasted the blood of his enemies. His sons, loyal to the end, followed their father into the abyss, their lives cut short by the consequences of their father's choices. The story of Saul's downfall is a tragedy in every sense of the word. He began his reign with such promise, chosen by God, anointed to lead his people to greatness. But pride, ambition, and ultimately disobedience became his undoing. He allowed the whispers of doubt to drown out the voice of God, and in doing so sealed his own fate. Modern temptations concerning the supernatural remain. The story of Saul and the witch of Endor, though ancient, holds a chilling relevance even today. We live in a world obsessed with the supernatural, fascinated by the occult, and eager to find meaning and answers beyond the realm of the ordinary. But this fascination, like a flickering candle in a darkened room, can be alluring and dangerous in equal measure. Just as Saul sought answers in the forbidden arts, so too are many today tempted to dabble in the occult, to seek guidance from mediums, psychics, and spiritualists. The internet is awash with horoscopes, tarot readings, and promises of unlocking hidden knowledge. But these practices, however enticing they may seem, are ultimately a dangerous diversion from the true source of wisdom and guidance, our relationship with God. The story of Saul's downfall is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the consequences of disobedience and the dangers of straying from God's path. But it is not a story devoid of hope. Even in the darkest of narratives, the light of God's love and mercy shines through, offering a beacon of hope and redemption. While Saul chose the path of disobedience, ultimately leading to his destruction, the Bible offers countless examples of individuals who found strength, wisdom, and victory through their unwavering faith in God. Abraham, Moses, David. These figures, despite their flaws and failings, remained faithful to God's commands, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. Their stories serve as a powerful testament to the transformative power of obedience. Obedience is not about blind adherence to a set of rules, but rather about aligning our hearts and minds with the will of God. It is about surrendering our own desires, our own limited understanding, and trusting in the wisdom of a loving God who wants what is best for us. Heed to this timeless warning. Choose faith over fear. The story of Saul and the witch of Endor stands as a timeless warning against the allure of the forbidden, the seductive nature of quick fixes and easy answers. It reminds us that true peace and victory are not found in consulting spirits or manipulating the supernatural, but in cultivating a deep and abiding relationship with the one true God. In a world consumed by fear, uncertainty, and a longing for the supernatural, the message of Saul's downfall resonates with even greater urgency. We are bombarded with messages that promote self-reliance, instant gratification, and the pursuit of power at all costs. But these pursuits, like the whispers that lured Saul astray, can lead us down a dangerous path, away from the light of God's love and into the darkness of our own making. Against all odds, God is able to use even the dead to bring about his word. Why? Simply because he's God. Until next time, God bless you. Shalom.